You're watching Film Crew, and this is a film review for the Battle of the Five Armies. And warning, it contains spoilers.
We spoil everything.
This was the last move in a master plan. A plan long in the making.
So, we've just seen The Hobbit, the Battle of the Five Armies, which is the final in the Hobbit Trilogy. Scoo, going into this film, what did you think Five Armies would provide for us?
Well, I was hoping for a climactic kind of conclusion to this Hobbit Trilogy, which has been going for several years now, and I have to say, that's what it provided for me. You know, I've been enjoying the Hobbit movies, and this was a great cap to those three movies.
Yeah, well, I was certainly hoping that there would be something in this film which would sort of redeem some of the Hobbit trilogy. I really felt that the film delivered on that. We had some really good emotional arcs. Perhaps some of them were a little bit accelerated beyond what I would have preferred.
Yeah.
But overall, we had a really nice conclusion to the trilogy that really felt satisfying.
Give us your answer. Will you have peace or war?
So let's break it down a little bit. We had this massive battle, a climactic sort of smashing together of these different cultures who are all there to claim, or not claim, Erebor for themselves, but really to get the gold that is within Erebor's mountain walls. And it's a large sort of ensemble piece movie, isn't it? There's many different characters that have been set up from the first two movies, but also a few new characters introduced into this one. So a very large patchwork quilt of things going on. But I felt they balanced it reasonably well.
This does very much become Thorin Oakenshield's film.
Yeah.
The real thrust of the story at this stage is really his descent into madness. Now that he is King Under the Mountain, he has the treasure of Erebor, but of course that's not enough for him. And so now you could sort of go through this entire arc of his, being driven mad by this gold, and yet the fact that the Arkenstone isn't available for him, and that seems to be the thing which is driving him. But you can see that even if he does have it, it's not going to be enough. He does actually come out the other side of it, and we do have a redemptive arc.
Absolutely.
All in there. But it does feel very much compressed in time.
One question.
Yes.
What happened to the Arkenstone?
Well, presumably it was still with
Bard.
Yeah.
The one thing that was a little bit disappointing was I felt it could have been a little more dwarf and Bilbo-centric. Legolas seemed to get quite a lot of action.
He did.
But I felt like, there was a lot of dwarf scenes that were kind of missing. The main cast of the 13 dwarfs that almost had no dialogue, no scenes in the movie. They just kind of sat around, and it felt a little underwhelming there.
You do have a little bit with Keely and Philly, particularly Keely's character arc with Toriel, which, I was not opposed to. I think it's an interesting story to add in there. I don't think it subtracted anything from it.
No.
I knew that Keely was going to die. I was surprised that Toriel lived, because she was a completely created character for these films.
I thought she might die too.
Yeah, I'm glad that she lived. I thought she was a really interesting character and had a good chance to be able to provide some great Elvish moments, which, as you say, I think the Elvish characters really had quite a bit of play in this. Lee Pace's character got so much more fleshed out in this one.
He's my hero lately. I mean, him playing Ronan in Guardians, but also here as the Elven King. He just commands you, presence on screen.
He's great.
You just love to watch him. He's awesome. He's awesome. Yeah.
Azog is trying to cut us off.
Let's talk about the battle itself, the visual effects, the stunt work, the action in this movie. I mean, there is a lot going on, and it's really enjoyable. There's a lot of sword play, a lot of use of the massive engine to create these massive battle scene shots, which was really great to see. But they didn't go too far with it, which was good. They didn't have the massive scale battle which they had in Return of the King. So it was,
which I think is a very smart thing. We've spoken about this in terms of, for a prequel trilogy, if you're going to construct it in such a way that you can actually watch all the films of both the prequel and the original series in a row, you don't want to top yourself in the prequels from what happens in the original series. No.
I think they were aware of that, and so they found new ways to keep you entertained and interested. They had new types of orcs. They had the Iron Hill. Is it the Iron Hill? Yeah, the Iron Hill.
Foot.
The Iron Foot. The Iron from the Iron Hills.
I think that
They're from the Iron.
there's iron involved there, and they're dwarves, and they looked really cool. I really
course,
liked them.
Billy Connolly made his first appearance in this movie, and he was great. We were talking about it afterwards, weren't we? And we weren't sure whether they'd motion captured him or whether they put
There were
makeup
some
on.
odd shots in there where something seemed off about him, so I'm not certain whether it was a makeup or if it was a motion capture or what, but some things looked a little bit weird.
Look around you! Have you not had your fill of death?
Luke Evans as Bard, the bowman,
Yeah.
had a very significant role. I felt a little critical thing for me was that his character, it almost felt like it sort of faded out a little bit towards the end. He got a little lost in the battle.
Yeah, I mean, the human, literally human side of the battle isn't exactly the strongest. The elves, very well represented. The dwarves, certainly well represented.
Yeah.
The orcs, well represented. But for the humans, you know, they're a ragtag bunch. They don't necessarily have a strong army in the first place.
Yeah.
A lot of their storyline becomes about defense. One thing that I want to mention is not the battle itself, but the wonderful ass-kicking that we saw the White Council giving.
I was just going to talk about this.
Yeah.
This was cool.
We see an action sequence with the White Council. So you've got Gandalf being rescued by Galadriel and Elrond and Saruman.
Yeah.
Which is a kick-ass action sequence.
Yeah.
I would never would have thought Cate Blanchett would be a big, scary fighter, but she is, and she's awesome.
Yeah.
Plus we get to see Hugo Weaving in action, kicking
Absolutely.
ass, as we know he can do.
And Christopher Lee.
And Christopher Lee, one of my favourites. You know, clearly they've done some Count Dooku style
manipulation
replacement
there. Yeah, absolutely.
but it's so fun to see.
Martin Freeman's portrayal as Bilbo has been really enjoyable.
Yeah.
In this movie especially, he's still got that humour and that just wit, and you just love him. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that probably the strongest part of the entire movie trilogy has been Bilbo right the way through. Any of the scenes with Martin Freeman in are so much stronger and more watchable than any of the others, and that's not to denigrate the other scenes.
Yeah.
But there's just something about Martin's Bilbo which really works fantastically well. The way that it wraps up by returning to Ian Holm, feeding right into the very first moments that we actually see him in Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful transition, and it's lovely to be able to, you know, say goodbye to Martin Freeman and say hello again to Ian Holm.
Will you follow me? One last time.
So there you have it, the Battle of the Five Armies, our review from the Hobbit Trilogy.
Yeah, that's brought the Middle-earth saga to a close, and so it's time for us to bring this review to a close. Thanks for joining us. Make sure that you like, subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you next time on Film Crew.